But it's been starting.
Just the one button on the side.
Get this, the cheapest ticket we can find are standing tickets, $265. That's fine. That's fine.
I remember when we did one for
What was that?
About to go to the game?
Nash. Hopefully Nash.
It was great, because we were all there on time. Right.
So the National wins at the clinch from that area. And it would be that.
Didn't want to take the house.
So it would be. You're never going to DC.
We just went to that game.
Yeah.
Did you end up going?
Well,
No.
Friday. See what back in the day.
It's definitely,
Already. Oh, to where?
yeah.
Over by.
Right.
Last time. Right on the interstate you're talking?
They got like past your front property.
Mr. Sawyer.
All right. We'll call the meeting to order. Start with roll call.
Okay, Mayor Menning.
Here.
Brenneman.
Here.
Kill. Monahan.
Here.
Glanzer. Here. Jones.
Here.
And Nelson is absent with notice.
Alright, do we have a motion to approve the agenda or any additions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Looking for a motion for the minutes of 10/1/2019.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from 10/1/19.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none? Alright, then do we have a motion to approve the bills submitted for payment?
Make a motion to approve those submitted for payment.
Second. Discussion?
I just have one thing, and Neil, I don't know whether you're probably not the guy to ask this question. So if you're not, just tell me you're not.
Okay.
We bought a new truck,
Yep.
we bought a new box.
Yep.
We're taking the old box off, putting it on the Dodge. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about surplusing the Dodge. So are we doing all this and then get a surplus to Dodge, or are we doing all this and we're gonna keep the Dodge?
The way I understand it with Craig, the way he's thinking is we'll keep the Dodge for a couple more years. Is what he's thinking. So if you've seen the box on it, how rusty it is, there's only one or two toolboxes that actually work.
But I think when we were talking about surplusing it, I think it was about gonna die.
Yeah.
So it's not dying anymore?
Well, it ain't in any better shape, but Terry's the one that drives it, and I mean, we don't run to town with it much. We very rarely leave the city limits with it, so I mean, that was the only reason.
So we're not doing anything with that box, we're just taking it off the one,
Right, I'm putting it on the
we're
other.
taking it off 14, putting it on the Dodge.
Yep.
We're not paying that, we're not running.
Nope, we might touch up the corners a little bit with some rattle cans, but that's it. It's got a few rusty spots on it, so.
So who's getting a 14, or who got the 14?
Me.
You did?
Mhm.
Alright, that's all I was curious about.
Any other discussion? Full vote? Glanzer?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes.
Brenneman?
Yep.
Jones?
Yes.
And Monahan?
Yeah.
Alright, now we've got a section set aside for public comments. Any public input on any non-agenda items? Okay. We'll move to visitors. Got Alyssa Boyce Wilson with Siouxland Libraries. Come on.
My name's Alicia Boysen. I am the branch librarian for the library here in Hartford, and Jody Fick, Siouxland Libraries Director, is with me tonight. It's been just over a year since we moved into our new space in Hartford, and I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update about what's been going on, and maybe just a little bit of what we are looking forward to in this next year. I believe you all are aware that we have an expanded access service, which is kind of like the 24-hour gym concept. We just don't offer the library 24/7. We have set hours that allow, currently we have about 70 customers signed up for that service, and it allows them to come into our library when the staff is not in the building. So that gives the residents of Hartford an extra 220 hours a month to use the library outside of our regular staffed hours. We staff the branch 85 hours a month, and we see about 400 people come through our doors every month at the Hartford Library during those times. We are going to open special hours for the hometown Christmas that you guys do on the first Sunday of the month. So we will be there open for the public to come in, and then we're also going to have a few activities during that hometown Christmas afternoon. My staff has been working with the hometown Christmas committee on making sure that whatever we do fits into what you guys are planning. And like I mentioned, it was a year in August that we moved into our new space, and our number of checkouts run about 12 to 1,500 a month. It varies a little bit depending on the time of the year and what people have going on. The latest thing that we've been working on over there it's actually outside the library, between our space and City Hall. It's an outdoor play area. We've been working with the youth librarians at our downtown library to purchase items that can be in that space that are going to encourage play, but also encourage talk and literacy between parents and children, or caregivers and their children. We also have toys available that people can come into the library and bring out and use during that both expanded access and our regular staffed hours. One thing that we are excited to see how this turns out is we're partnering with Sunshine Foods here in town to add literacy, little talking points throughout the grocery store. So for example, parents would go into the produce area, and it would encourage them to count the number of apples they're purchasing with their child, or ask their children what color this fruit or vegetable is, and just trying to promote that talk between the caregiver and the child when they're out into the grocery store. And we're talking about a few things of how to maybe even get them back into our libraries once they've been to the grocery store. So we're excited to partner with Sunshine and see where that goes this next year.
Yeah, and I wanted to just say a few words. Jody Fick, Director of Siouxland Libraries. One of the words that Alicia said a lot was partner and partnering. And I believe that this library is very much a demonstration of a very unique partnership between the city of Hartford and the Senior Center and the library. Siouxland Libraries was formed in 1995 with the merger of the Minnehaha County Rural Public Library, which served Hartford, and Sioux Falls Public Library. And in that time, we have grown from a system that checked out about 300,000 items to now we are checking out 2.25 million items to people throughout Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. So we are all about partnering. In this little library, in the last year, we had nearly 18,000 checkouts, which is a lot of business in a space not even half the size of this room. If the citizens had paid for every one of those books, they would have spent over $350,000. $350,000 that they can now use to feed their families, pay for their gas to get to work, spend at the businesses within Hartford. Libraries are about sharing, and I very much appreciate the sharing that the city of Hartford has done along with the senior citizens in sharing that space with us. And so, without any further ado, I am going to present what we call, it's a little coin, a challenge coin that the city of Sioux Falls is giving to the people who partner with us the most. I'm gonna give that over to Mayor Jeremy, but I really wanna say thank you to Jesse and to Teresa and to Craig for making the library, and to the citizens for making the library a positive, happy place. If you don't have a library card yet, come on over and get one, because you're missing out. So, this coin is especially about, yay.
I wasn't dressed, I just came from a football.
Oh, that's okay. But the core values that Sioux Falls has, which are very much the core values of the library, and correlate to our entire region, are about safety, protecting quality of life. The library protects your quality of life. Teamwork, collaborating to serve, innovation. This library is a very innovative way to do something in a new way, you know, to make it happen. Character, doing the right thing, and then respect, honoring the dignity of others. So, I'll present that to Hartford. So, thank you.
Perfect.
Never been to the library.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, I'm gonna actually.
There you go.
No, thank you for everything all of you have done, Alicia and Jody. It's been a great partnership on our behalf also. I think that, just it's nice to see the new life that's come from all of that. And, yeah, thank you. Thank you for all the work you pour into that and just everything it gives for our residents. It's been fantastic. And I appreciate, I'll never be able to say everybody who was involved, so I'm not gonna point out everyone, but everybody who helped make all of that happen, you know, from city staff, your team, to anybody at the senior center, that was really a nice partnership, and I'm glad it's worked out very well for both of us.
And it's not done yet.
And it's not done yet.
It's just exciting. So, thank you.
Yep. Any questions before I kind of go? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Alright, we are past 7:05, so we're gonna jump to our 7:05 public hearing on Nicholson Road, which is review the assessment rolls. And we've got a couple of different resolutions on this, some different delayed assessments and a direct assessment for sidewalks. So Teresa, I'll maybe let you give a little bit of background, and I'll probably walk through the first resolutions on there, and then I believe we have some folks here that would like to comment on the direct assessment for sidewalks.
Okay, so, did you point out, these are all in association with our Mickelson Road project. The first three resolutions, and each resolution has a roll with it, which points out the property owner and the amount that's being assessed against that property. But the first resolution is basically, it's a delayed assessment on the street curb and gutter put in. And actually, the first three are delayed assessments. And what this is the curb, the street, the gutter, the water, and then the sewer against those properties that are not within city limits. So a delayed assessment means the assessment is out there, you know, on the county, but until that property is actually developed and annexed into the city, it isn't due to the city. So like I said, the first one is a delayed assessment on street curb and gutter. The second one is delayed assessment on the water, and then the third one is delayed assessment on the sewer. And like I said, each one of those has the roll with them. There are basically three properties affected. One is the Jacobsmus property, that is not within city limits, and then there are two properties that are essentially owned by Rose Stumping. One is Prairie Farms, and the other one is Circle J Farms, or Prairie Rose Farms, sorry. So, like I said, if you wanna take each one and make motions on them, look at the roll, see if there's any input from the audience on those rolls, but these will all be delayed. They'll be sent to the county, but they will not be due until that property such time in the future, sometime it's actually annexed into the city.
All right, we'll start with the first one, resolution 2019-10.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve in a second, and discussion on the delayed assessment for street curb and gutter. Hearing none, we'll vote. Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Yep.
Keel?
Yes.
And Glanzer?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2019-11, delayed assessment roll for water mains.
Second.
A motion and a second, discussion? We'll vote. Brennan?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Glanzer?
Yes.
And Keel?
Yes.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2019-12, delayed assessment for sewer improvements.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. We'll vote. Keel?
Yes.
Glanzer?
Yes.
Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
And Brennan?
Yes.
Okay. And the last one up is 2019-13 for direct assessments on sidewalks. We can either open up for public discussion on this, or we can throw motion in a second first and then have it under discussion.
Make a motion to approve 2019-13, direct assessment for sidewalks.
Second.
Okay, got a motion in a second. Alright, now's a good chance to, anybody who would wanna come up and speak to this resolution that's out there. As we talked about a little bit earlier, as long as everybody's not repeating the same kind of things, you have to come up and talk about that a little bit. Mike?
I'm Mark Wiggly, and I'm gonna keep it kind of short. Here's my argument about what the city's doing, is that we lived with that road as a dirt road for 10 years. We couldn't use our backyard because of the dust. It was terrible. We put up with it for 10 years, and you're wanting us to pay $4,200 in 2 months. It just doesn't seem right. I'm petitioning the council to make the payments stretched out to the council so we can avoid the county and the 7% interest. I'm just asking for fairness. That's all I have.
I don't know that we can avoid,
Well, if I can comment on this, so
Yes.
the 2 months he's referring to, in the letter, you know, you can have two basically payment options. They can, pay it all up front, and I gave them, a couple months to pay that, I think actually 45 days. Or if they don't pay it within that time frame, then it gets sent to the county, and then it goes on that, 7% in that 5 years. Now, that's just an arbitrary date that we never discussed, I just went off of the last, assessment we had, so I took that 45 days. It's totally up to the council if you wanna extend that or not, so that is an option for you. That's not, in codified law, it's not in city ordinance, that date is totally up to the council, you can put. I did talk with the county, and any assessments that we put against any properties or for anything have to be to them by November 1st in order to get into next year's payment cycle. We won't make that just because of the public hearing times and then the referral times and stuff. So actually, no matter what date you give them now, their first payment's not gonna be due actually until 2021. But interest will start accruing as soon as we send it to the county, so that's a difference there.
This is where I want to talk. Okay.
Come on up and up. Before you talk, I just got a quick question for Teresa, because I want to make sure we're clear on,
Okay.
on one of those pieces there. So at this point, let's say everything passed the way it's written right now, and they had 45 days from the time of the letter, is that correct?
Right.
From the time of
That's
the
what I
letter.
mean, yeah.
And whether they paid or didn't pay, either way, if, well, they pay up front, then that's one thing, but if they don't, then it's not gonna get on this year's roll with the county anyway, right?
Right,
So we kind of have, I guess what I'm getting at is if this were more than 45 days, I'm not gonna put a number to it.
Right.
Either way, it could still be on the county's next year at some point, is that correct?
2021,
2021.
yeah, 2021, yeah, not next year, but 2021,
2021.
right. So,
Okay.
say you want to stretch it out for 6 months, that's fine. It's still, the first payment's not gonna be till 2021. What it does though, it gives less time for that interest to be accruing.
Right,
Yeah, so,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
so, like,
Okay,
that
Yeah.
makes sense.
okay.
okay.
Good.
I'm Allison McGilvery, I live on 5 White Mulligan Circle. And I guess my question was, when would that be sent to the county?
So it'll be sent to the county, whatever date they decide
Okay,
to
'cause-
make the last pay, or, give you to make the payment in full to us.
Sure, and again, 45 days from the letter, a little rushed, especially with the upcoming holiday seasons, that everybody knows. That can cause a lot of stress on families. People have to dip into their emergency funds for something that really technically shouldn't or could have been brought to us sooner. We lived in that house for 5 years. Again, it was a dirt road when we moved in. I was under the impression from our builder and the developer that the sidewalk was kind of included, but I guess it was just curb and gutter, which I'm happy not all of that is, because I feel really bad for the people that live on Vandermark. If you guys are really charging them $100 per linear foot for the size of sidewalk that we have, it's 195 feet. So again, we're with you on like 4,000. But my concern was with like payment plan 2. If you were gonna send it to the county, we could possibly be incurring interest on that principal for an entire year before a payment is even due, or even longer, depending on when that payment in 2021 is due. So why not give us the option to try and pay it in full before 2021? That way it doesn't cause as much strain on families around the holidays, just things in life in general, So I guess I'm with you, and I would like to petition, I don't know the right word for it, for a little bit more time than 45 days. I can speak on probably behalf of all the people here when I say we're all responsible adults, and if we would have been given the proper notifications, like when we were told we needed to grant the city a temporary easement. You could have told us at that time that, an assessment would be done when the project was done. This is kind of what we're guessing it would be. We could have had enough time to save that money, and none of us would be up here right now. So I guess I just ask for, again, fairness and what the library director said. Somebody help me, she said, yeah, about, doing the right thing, being fair, yes, quality of life. Because this can impact people's quality of life. It's a big payment, $4,500 in 45 days. That's a lot to swallow, especially when you're not aware of it. So I guess I just ask as well that give us a little extra time to pay that $4,200 or whatever it is that we have.
I was gonna ask that question, Ross, and I should know, because I got one of the letters also. Did it say anything in our easement letter about this?
I'm not,
I don't believe.
probably,
And I got one too,
I
I
got a
should
copy of it.
be able to answer that, but I don't recall that it did.
Sure.
No, it wouldn't have had
It
an
probably did.
assessment amount or date or anything like that.
Okay.
It just would have been an easement, a construction easement.
I can tell you the folks in Denmark didn't get any notification about a sidewalk.
Didn't?
Right, and, sorry, I don't wanna just keep talking, but if somebody on Vandermark's paying, if I want to come back.
Yep, sorry.
I'm not a good public speaker. Like, I did the math when I watched that last
city council meeting, and I'll be honest, it was disheartening the way that people were so detached, not really taking into consideration the people that support your community. You have teachers and, you know, people that are on the school board that want to support the community and watch it grow. But I was doing the math on the people for like Vandermark. If they have a sidewalk the size of mine, 195 feet, that's like $19,500. That could bankrupt somebody.
There are no assessments that high on Vandermark.
Not personal ones, probably the golf course.
But I just know that it was $100 per linear, but.
Not for residential,
Not for
there
residential.
isn't, yeah, there's no residential in
Did
it,
you
but.
say you seen $100 of drawing foot for sidewalk?
That's for-
That'd be for,
That's-
that's for the
That's not for the
street,
sidewalk.
yeah,
Yeah, that's for curb gutter and asphalt.
Yes, yes,
yeah.
yeah.
I think your guys' average was what, $4, $4.50 a square
Yeah.
foot?
$4.55 a
Yes,
square
I'm
foot, I
just saying
think.
that in the future, it would be nice to give people a little bit more time.
And like I said, that 45 days was just what I had taken from what we had done with our last project, so that's totally arbitrary, you know, for the council to decide when you wanna put that date on there, you know.
So Teresa, help me, if nothing changes, and we turn this in after November 2019, the first payment would be due January.
No, April, right?
Well,
First
it
time.
can go on the tax roll.
Right.
We'll go in the actual
January 21.
2021.
If they escrow for their taxes, they would get their first,
But if we hypothetically sit on it for a year, that puts us at, let's just say November, let's say we turn it in November of 2020.
And that could be possible, yeah.
Would the first payment be due 21, or would it be 22?
No, so if we
Would
get
it
it there
fall
by
back
November 1st of next year, sit on it a year, that payment will still be due in 21, because we got it there by the November 1st deadline,
You know,
but they wouldn't have any of that interest.
they missed all the,
Right,
they missed a year's worth of interest.
right.
Yeah, see, and at this point, yeah.
But this
See
one
where
is
you're going
just
with that, I think I'm
the
thinking
time frame
same
for the
thing.
interest,
Yeah.
yeah.
Much in favor of giving them that time to pay it directly. It's just gonna sit there in the county anyway, and it's just gonna accrue interest, so setting a deadline
My-
of October or something like that would.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have any problem with that. My only question is what happens is they'd be setting a precedent. So, I mean, whether we wanted it to or not, it would be. So, I don't know if it would take a policy, or, I don't know how you do that for these folks, and then remember to do it for the next group of folks.
I think it has to do with timing.
I think it's, yeah, timing, I would say if you can't get it there by November 1st, you know, by the time you go through all your hearings and whatnot and wait your publication
Well,
time
really,
period, then
but-
you just wait till
Really,
the next time around.
I think the easiest way to do it, if we go down that road, the easiest way to do it would be to just to make the policy, because right now you're running on 45 days.
Yeah.
And that's just what we did in the past.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't take a genius to figure out, we could just make a policy that says when sidewalks are assessed, you have a 12-month window to pay it in full. Whatever you don't pay in full, then that gets rolled to the county regardless of the timing.
Yeah, and you could do that, or you can make it, you know, depending on when your project gets done, is, you know, every project's always different, you can always just make it, you know, if it doesn't get there by November 1st of that year, then it rolls until till November 1st of the following year.
But all I'm saying is if we do it, I think we need a policy later on to reflect it, because you're not always gonna be here, we're not always
True,
gonna be here.
yeah, it'll be set, it'll be set for
I-
future.
I didn't know anything about the 45 days. Did you,
Yeah.
or did you have to look it up?
No, I had to look it up.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, if we had whatever we do tonight, if we deviate from what we normally do, I think we need to follow it up later with a policy, just so it's,
Change
That
it across
makes
the
sense.
board.
Yeah, that makes sense. Then it gives, then you got a
Just
clear
so we-
cut,
when
you
we
know
do-
exactly what to,
when we do set a precedent, we set it in writing,
right.
so it treats everybody the same moving forward.
Mhm.
Because people on Vanmark,
Yeah, it's gonna be the
it's
same.
gonna be the same deal, so we're either gonna have a policy or we're gonna have to do something for them too.
Right, but it,
Do we almost always, when these kind of projects come up, have to go get that easement, or is that easement necessary? Is that easement of many times right away in place?
I guess it depends on what, sometimes you have enough room in the right of way, sometimes you don't, you need the
Mhm.
easements with the construction, I mean, I guess it depends on what you're doing where, you know.
I just wondered, the only reason I bring that up is I wondered if there could be a way to have a spot for us where, whether it's when we're getting easements signed, or whether it's when we're starting construction, or before that, whenever it is, to be able to notify homeowners that, oh, hey, here's a project that's coming, it's coming by you, here's some things to expect, you know, so that, because I get it, you know, some of you have been there for quite a long time, some maybe haven't. And, I guess it doesn't matter whether you haven't or you have, but if you've been there longer, it seems like, gosh, you know what, I don't know if I'll ever have to worry about that sidewalk, you know?
Well, and that
And
avoids
then all of a
that,
sudden it comes up and there it is.
that avoids that confusion too, if they were under the assumption that it, you know, the developer
Developer.
had
Yep.
paid, you know, the assessments when, you know, they weren't, it was just a street versus a sidewalk, so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
the right side is you're not paying for both.
Thanks, Mark.
The question was whether we were gonna have a sidewalk on that side of the street at all,
Sure.
you know?
Chris?
Yeah, Chris, I'm at 513 Cloverleaf. Mark, how you talked about setting the precedent, I think, because the whole price is based off of the square foot bid price
The bid.
that you got from Suco, correct?
Yes.
And then whatever footage we had at the sidewalk area. So, you know, those pieces of information you have as soon as the bids are in on a project. So even to the point when you get easements or after that, you know, you could certainly go out and just notify the homeowner that says, here's what we're expecting, or here's the anticipated cost for the assessment. You know, an official assessment roll will be sent out once, you know, substantial completion's done. I've done that on several projects in my line of work, but that kind of buys you a little bit more time too on that time frame of not necessarily setting a precedent that you have to give them that full year and to get a project done right at that time. Where if you send those out early enough, I mean, you had bids back for this probably in mid-2018, early
Is it
2018.
May of 18, I think? Yeah.
So, I mean, even shortly after that, I mean, if you send them out then, that gives them over a full year. You know, I certainly know from my standpoint, if I would've known a year in advance to plan for it, it would've been a whole different story than 2 months.
Can I speak to that, Chris? I sat here, I asked the question a couple times what it was gonna cost us for sidewalks and didn't find out. Okay, and I sat here. So I don't know, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know if it's as cut and dried to give us that number. Cause I know I asked, what's this gonna cost us when we get to that point?
And when you do a project, a lot of times, Mark knows, you have change orders, so, you know, something
Yeah.
happens where you gotta change, and it might fluctuate the price, but it wouldn't fluctuate probably greatly, I mean, you could let them know this is what estimate.
Right,
and
and
yeah, yeah.
Right.
That's what we've done quite a
Correct.
bit, is here's what we're anticipating or estimating for a cost, and it might fluctuate based on factors, but at least that gives you a ballpark number to shoot for and plan for too.
Well, all of those projects come with unit pricing,
Mhm.
so we get a pretty darn good estimate.
Right, right,
Absolutely,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it was right in the bid, yeah.
I kinda feel bad. I think you and I, Chris, had a conversation that we were gonna have to pay for this. I kinda feel bad that, did you know you were gonna have to pay? So how did you, cause I know that you and I think, had talked about it.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago.
Yeah.
but we did have that conversation a little while ago, yeah. But it would have that one, we didn't know price though either. I mean, we had a discussion that we would have to be paying for it, but not on an actual price of it.
And at that point, you wouldn't have known the time frame or
Right.
anything at that point either.
Right.
When I found out about it, is when I sat on planning and zoning, and it was pointed out to me that I have a double frontage lot. So before that, I never knew that a sidewalk was gonna be even necessary behind our court. So,
Sure. Now, with this, the way it sits right now, Teresa, and we just, I'll just remind you, we got a motion and a second to approve it at this point out there. If this motion fails, do we come back with a new resolution, or could there be a motion to amend this resolution? I just wanna make sure we.
So the resolution itself, if you look at, just sets the footage and the price and the years or whatever. Basically, you can approve it with the deadline date being whatever you want, so to give them extra time, you know. Cause the resolution's fine, I mean, it sets off what the price is, but you guys need to add on changing that deadline, that date to send it to the county, yeah.
Further comments on that?
I just got one thing.
Make sure Karen's got yours.
Oh, yeah, 752 Shamrock Drive, Michael Ingles. Basically, I just want to speak to the quality of the sidewalk. I don't know if any of you have actually walked down the sidewalk. It's not pretty. I mean, we paid a lot for our properties up there. It's definitely not pretty. I mean, there are a ton of boot marks on it. I myself, on my corner, have a very large crack that I was planning on probably having to replace next summer. Now that we're having to pay for the sidewalk, it's a completely different story. So to me, I think that quality has to be assessed on some sort of punch list or something. Somebody's got to go out there and look at it. Also, the backfill is not, I would say, definitely not quality. So.
Okay.
Ross, does that, yeah?
Yeah, I'll speak to that a little bit. We're still in the process of getting a contractor to go out and complete a lot of the punch list items on this project. And if you do have a crack, I'm sure, you know, our inspector would have already known about it. And if they don't, I guess we'll definitely add that. I mean, that's warranty work. That it's the contractor's responsibility to replace that. As far as boot marks, footprints, I'd have to see it to know what it looks like for sure, I guess.
It's messy.
But if there's a physical imprint and it's, you know, obvious that it's not, you know, smooth, I mean, maybe we can consider adding that to the punch list too. But if it's just a surface mark, you know, that might fade over time, you know, it's probably not something that we'd necessarily rip out and replace.
So are you gonna, in the process of replacing my sidewalk, rip out my sprinkler system so I have to replace it again, or? I mean, that's an expense too that I had to incur.
I would hope, you know, we won't have to do anything like that. You know, replacing a panel sidewalk shouldn't be that difficult, I wouldn't think. And as far as the sprinkler system, I believe the city's reimbursing for that, is that correct?
Not the boulevard.
Not
is what I
if,
was
not
Oh.
if it's in the right of way.
Not in the right of way, I see.
If it was on the personal property.
That was on personal property. side.
Right.
So your sprinkler got damaged and it was in the boulevard, or it was on your property?
Yeah, it was in the boulevard. I had to replace 2 heads and a large piece of the sprinkler line. As
It was in the
damaged.
boulevard?
It was in the boulevard on the sidewalk
Did
side.
you put it back in the boulevard?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was already there. I had to replace what was there.
Everybody puts sprinkler in Boulevard, Mark.
I mean, everybody does it. Unless you want brown grass in the boulevard and green grass in the car.
In ground?
No, but if I was gonna, I would put it in the boulevard.
Your lawn would be 2 different colors.
Everybody puts sprinkler. Everybody puts sprinkler in the boulevard.
If you drive up there, everybody's
That city grass, that's boulevard grass, it looks nice.
I just never heard of, everybody does it, huh?
Uptown problems, Mark, uptown problems.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Michael. All right, any further comment, discussion from the council?
I guess I'd like to see it delayed personally. Our vote on this doesn't change.
Right now,
We're voting to approve the resolution, we can direct Teresa when to submit it, is that my understanding?
Well, I'd want you to either vote this one down and do a new vote that extends that deadline date with
Okay.
whatever date you want in there, or amend it to change that, because you know, it does have that December 2nd of this year deadline date, and you'll want it, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, the roll's good, doesn't change that, but we'd want to vote, yeah, we wanna make a motion with changing that date.
A Robert's Rule of Order person just approaches the podium.
True, I know.
Tony Randall, 500 Shamrock. Guys, as I listen to the citizens here talking, and Mark, I appreciate you part of precedent, P and Z, we talked about not setting precedent and how we're setting the precedent. But I think the precedent that you could set here tonight in a separate piece of policy would be something along the lines of all direct assessments accrued throughout the year are due by, and I'm gonna pick out the date, October 1. And if they aren't paid by October 1, they get sent to the county by November 1. That way, whatever project you've got going on, when you guys do a direct assessment for the year, those people have until that point in time, and then it goes to the county. They don't get their interest. I think it's fair to everybody to do that. I think it's a good piece of policy to move forward with the city from now on. As far as the parliamentary procedure side of this, Teresa's kind of right. I think what you guys could do, you have a motion to approve the resolution. You could amend that motion to put a date on this assessment, and then you vote on the amendment. If you approve that amendment, then you vote on the motion, approve the motion, move on. And then I'd like to see you guys put the policy on the agenda in future dates so you can take action on that for all of the correct assessments. Thank you.
I appreciate your input on the policy regarding assessments, and I think all of this goes away with better communication. So, when we as counselors, you have people tell us we need to communicate better, it's trickle down, or sometimes it flows up.
Alright, we've got a motion and a second on the way it is. I'm not hearing any amendments at this point.
I'm not gonna amend it there, let's just do it.
Okay. We'll vote. Monahan?
No.
Jones?
Abstain.
Brennan?
No.
Keel?
No.
And Glanzer?
No.
Okay. Do a new motion.
Move to approve resolution 2019-13 with the verbiage for sending this to the county to be effective October 1st, 2020.
Anything else? You got it?
Move the interest or what's that? Not till 2020,
Interest would start, if it has to be in by November 1st, if I understood Teresa correctly, interest would start on November 1st of 2020 and would begin accruing
Interest will start on October 1st of 2020.
October 1st of
That
2020.
date. Whatever
It has to
date
be
you
in by
set.
November 1st,
You're right.
yeah.
So whatever date you
essentially-
give them to pay it off by,
Essentially,
then it gets sent to the county and it starts that day.
we essentially kick this can 12 months down the road.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, we have a motion?
Second.
Second. Right. Anybody need to hear it again, or need clarification on that?
So you have till October 1 to pay in full, interest free.
And if they all pay in full, nothing gets sent to the county, and then whatever isn't paid gets sent to the county. And they can make payments too, throughout that year, if they wanna put $1,000 down in that year, and then just the balance goes, then only the balance gets interest, or, you know, until that October 1st deadline, you can pay as much or as little as you want, you know.
When's the city's first bond payment due on that project?
I'd have to look it up, it's gonna be
January.
next year, yeah, 2020, the first payment.
We pay that annually or quarterly or annual?
Well, no, actually, it's quarterly, because it's in the Senate, yeah, it's every quarter we have a payment.
Just I'd like to ask people that spoke, does that seem fair and acceptable?
Yes, that's.
Yes, thank you.
Good.
Alright, let's vote. Brennan?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes.
Glanzer?
Yes.
Jones?
Abstain.
And Monahan.
I got I'm on the list, I have to abstain. Yes, yes, I'm on the list.
Did you and Jeremy work that out?
Oh,
So I'm the kingpin of this whole operation?
sorry.
Didn't mean to come to you last there, Mark.
Yes, yes.
Jeez.
All right. It's over.
If my name wasn't on the list, I would surely have voted.
It's over. Done with it.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry. It's just,
All right. Teresa, as far as a policy goes, when would be a reasonable time to be able to look at a draft or maybe discuss this
Can
on
do a draft by the next meeting if you
next
want.
meeting? Okay.
I'll try to put something together and
Yep,
put it on the next
let's
agenda.
add that to the next agenda.
Okay.
And
can I say something? If you guys got any questions, call me, you know where I live. Call me. To all of you up there, thank you.
Thank you guys for coming in.
I have one last question.
Yes.
How many sprinklers in your boulevard?
I do not,
In
actually.
the area between the sidewalk and the curb. Misters. That's where we always put it. Okay.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, Ross, if you could just help us follow up on any of those punch list
Yeah,
items on that
yeah, I'll make
sidewalk.
sure.
I'm sure Mr. Engel will let us know if they got anything else.
Yeah.
I had a sidewalk in my house.
Thank you.
I'd have to put a sprinkler there. Yeah.
All right, next we got up the first reading of ordinance 679, which is the key lockbox system.
Thank you guys.
That was an interesting one. Thank you.
Okay, well, give you a little bit of background on this. Planning and Zoning's been talking about it for a couple of meetings. This was first brought to us by Brian, our fire chief, and basically, the fire department, when they're going into commercial buildings or apartment buildings that, have a master key to get in or whatnot, basically it sounds like he is carrying around a key full of rings, 20, 30 rings to get into the different buildings and whatnot. And several other cities have basically adopted or implemented a uniform lockbox system for keys. So basically, commercial properties or these, apartment buildings that have got multiple doors and they have a key box on the outside of their building with a master key. So it'll be one that the fire department emergency personnel will have. And then inside that lockbox is actually the keys or swipe card or whatever they need to actually get into that building. And that master key is basically keyed or, they're all the same and they're unique to Hartford. They will begin through a company that's unique to Hartford. So what this ordinance would do is make it so any commercial building, industrial building, or non-residential structure, say like a school or church, that has any kind of alarm system, automatic fire sprinkler system or alarm system in them to have the key boxes. Or if you have any residential, multifamily residential structures that have like a common corridor, they don't have an outside door to get into, so you'd have to break through, several doors to get to them, at least a couple. Those would be required to have one as well. Or we don't have any in Hartford at the time, but if you would have like a gated community or whatnot, you had like a security gate to get through, that would be required too. We kind of took this, parts of this off of Vermillion has a very similar ordinance in place. We have adopted the International Fire Code, which allows us to adopt key box systems, so we're within our ordinance as far as the fire code to do that. If this is implemented and planning and zoning passes, and they recommend passing it to the council, but if this is implemented, it will be required on all new structures going forward, and then any current structures we have in the city that meet this description that's in this ordinance, they will have a year to get a key box installed and put up. The key box itself would be the owner of the building's responsibility to buy, and to put up, and there's, within this ordinance here, it says where they need to be placed, and a lot of it's coordinated through the fire department. But then the fire department will also purchase like the master keys and the system to control the keys. Where this master key is kept, Ryan can maybe explain it a little bit more, but it sounds like you have a code system to get into it, which is monitored, so they'll be able to tell who in the fire department went into the key box and got the master key, you know, so it's kind of an auditing system there to know who's had access to these keys, so, I don't know, Brian, want to add any more to it, or you, I explained that all correctly?
Yep, pretty much got it. Kind of a little backstory. This is something I started looking into about 4 years ago as the fire department started acquiring more keys for buildings, more codes written on papers. And it's, as we've responded to different calls, medicals, life safety type, with the apartment buildings in town that have a keyed or code access just to get into the building, let alone to an apartment door. So it's really gotten to the point that we as a fire department don't want to be the keeper of everybody's keys. That puts us at a very large liability risk, but also as the city expands, not only from the residential but from the industrial standpoint, it just better allows us and the business owners to help protect their properties. The system, the way it's laid out, as Teresa explained, it is the property owner's responsibility to purchase that. The city nor the fire department would be in the sales business of that. They would go directly to a Knox website to purchase whatever model they want, whether it's surface mount, flush mount, whatever size they need to hold what they want. The ordinance lays out approximate location, address, side of the building, within 15 feet of the entrance door. Really, it's their discretion at that point where they want to put it. The box holders do not have access to a key to the boxes because it is one key fits all within the city. Once they have the box mounted, they would have to contact fire department command staff. Somebody from fire department would then have to access our own keys, putting in the code, take that key, meet with the property owner, open the box, allow them to put in what they're putting in, lock the box, and return our key to the apparatus.
Only the fire department has access to that box.
Correct.
Okay.
The way it works from the fire department side, we would be making an investment in this also. I'm envisioning putting these boxes on 4 of our trucks, the 2 structural trucks and the 2 EMS trucks. It's going to be an investment of $900 to $1,000 per truck to add these boxes on. The way the boxes work, every individual member will have their own personal access code to it. The system also comes with software. As Teresa said, it's all monitored. Every entry to that box is monitored by code and date and time, so every time it's opened up should correspond to a call at a specific address or a meeting with the property owner for that initial installation of the box, or if in the future keys change and the owner needs to update it. It adds an extra level of security. Right now, like I said, we really work hard to maintain the security, but we only have these keys and codes on one truck. If we got a truck out of service or a different type of call, we don't know if we're gonna have the right key at the right time. This really standardizes us, and we have, give you some, for instance, we have apartment building owners that do not have controlled access, have given us master keys, because if they have a apartment owner with a medical emergency not able to open a door themselves, they don't want us breaking a door down to get in there. We have business owners that are currently not sprinkled, not alarm system, that are giving us keys and codes to get in, because if there's an issue at 3 a.m., they don't want to replace a broken door for several $1,000s. They want us to have the keys and codes. And what this ordinance does is it puts a proper system in place for the city of Hartford that allows us as a fire department not to be key holders. It puts the responsibility to a proven system that's used nationally and allows us to replicate it. So essentially, anybody we would currently have keys to, even if they don't fall under the parameters, they would be told, we're no longer going to be a key holder, here's your option. Anybody in our coverage area would then be able to do it on a voluntary basis if they're outside of these parameters. But that's really the backstory of why we did it, between the life safety and us not being a key holder.
What's the cost to the business owner?
Depending on the type of box, as I've looked them up, it's approximately $200 to $300.
All of the vehicles responding have a ladder that will reach 15 feet tall.
Yes, they would.
And the only reason I ask that is because the key box should be installed within 15 feet of the main entrance. I can see some wise guy putting it 15 feet in the air.
Yep, and that would be a discussion as they're going. I would hope they're having a discussion, whether it's with city staff or fire department staff, because ultimately, fire department is gonna have to show up to put the keys into the box, and at that point in time, as you said, if it's truly not accessible, we should be able to go back. I believe that the ordinance also states, or at the discretion of the fire department, that, you know, those changes could be made at that point.
Or an alternate location, yeah.
Yep.
That's not gonna work, but
You know, from my perspective, I didn't start this discussion to be a pain in the butt to any residential or commercial business in the building. I feel that just the way Hartford's growing, we need to get a better system in place for dealing with access to buildings that whether the property owner wants us to have access or whether based on life safety needs, we should have better access to.
And there's only gonna be more and more keys piling up.
will this be something you annually check with business owners? I know like in Sioux Falls, the fire department comes around and inspects, you know, my fire extinguishers, for instance. I don't have this in my business, but I would assume that they would wanna confirm that the lock is still operable, the keys within still function accordingly. Is that?
Right now, that is not in the plans. Right now, it is, as laid out in there, it's the property owner's responsibility to update it if there's any changes made. Being a 100% volunteer staff, I'll tell you right up front, there's not gonna be the manpower to do an annual inspection on something.
Well, worst case scenario, you just break the door down.
Correct.
Yeah, you guys always have the master key.
Correct. There's always another way in.
Well, I mean, it's not a volunteer fire department's obligation to make sure that the landowner has the right key in the box. You get there, you get the key don't work, you break the door down.
I guess spirit of the ordinance is in the right place.
Well, I mean, people gotta take some personal responsibility sooner or later, so.
So then if we approve this, the people that you do have keys, are you turning them back in?
Correct, I would be going to all those that I currently have keys, saying the fire department is no longer gonna be a key holder, here's your option.
Get a Knox box.
Correct.
Yep. It's interesting. So I don't think Sioux Falls requires it yet.
No, you see them, but it's not required.
There's more talk in the NFPA and building codes, but now they're even doing Knox box on the fire department connections too. They're locking down.
Right, and that's to prevent vandalism.
Right. So. I think that's coming down. I like it.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
I guess, so if I read this properly, this is for, the system shall be required on the following structures, commercial. Is that just blanket every commercial structure?
It's gotta have an automatic alarm system or, fire I can't say it. Suppression, there you go.
So it only pertains to industrial or non-residential structures protected by an automatic alarm system or automatic suppression system, or structures that are secured in a manner that restricts access during emergency. That's
Those are
one
the three
category.
words, yep.
Multi-family residential structures that have restricted access through locked doors or have a common corridor, that's the other. all properties having a security gate or vehicular entrance. I can't think anybody's got.
I don't think we have that currently in town.
So really, this
Could
would
have it.
just affect multifamily residentials that have a common corridor,
Lot.
locked common corridor. And businesses that have an automatic alarm or a suppression system.
Correct. Those are the only requirements. Everybody else will be voluntary.
We talked about too, it'll encompass the school, even though that's not a commercial, but it's a non-residential that has an,
Common
No.
corridor.
Whether it's
Common
well,
lock.
it has the
They have
alarm
alarm and the
system.
sprinkler.
Yeah, they have the sprinkler and the alarm system, so.
Can I ask a question?
Hotel.
Come on up, Sandy.
Sandy Dean, we happen to have a house in town, but we do have a business out in Broward, British. So what's the parameters of this? Is it just the city?
This is just the city of limits of Hartford.
Oh, okay. And what would be the cost that's gonna be incurred, do you think, by these people?
It's approximately $200 to $300 for a lockbox.
And you will no longer then accept a master key from
No.
anybody, whether they're covered under those parameters or not?
Correct. And that will be whether in the city limits or any of our coverage area. That will change. If we adopt this, the intent is any of our coverage area, if our key's gonna fit, that's their option outside the city limits of Hartford also. I don't want, we have codes for many places outside city limits. I don't wanna be the whole world of these codes. I want a properly secured way.
So if my business is in the country and I wanna give you a key, you're gonna tell me no.
Correct.
Yeah.
Your option's going to be, here's a lockbox.
Or nothing.
Right.
I can't even imagine you guys provided that in the past.
It's kind of grown legs of its own, probably more than what it should have.
I can imagine.
And this is the one way we can rectify it and get it back where we're systemic again.
I wouldn't wanna be the guy standing there with a ring full of keys.
Well, it's not just keys, it might be a piece of paper that has a code on it, or,
I wouldn't wanna be that guy.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
You might have touched on this, I apologize, but have you talked to any of the businesses about this?
I have not. I don't think there's very many businesses that are gonna have a direct effect out of it currently. We're just trying to be a little proactive as we look to new businesses coming in the future also.
When would you like to see this fully implemented?
I'm not sure what's in the ordinance, Teresa, for an effect.
So it's an ordinance, so this would be first reading. If it goes through tonight, the next meeting will be second reading, so it will be November 5th.
Effective.
Probably 20 days, it'll be,
December 4th.
yeah, there you go. Just
But really,
December
from that
December
point,
4th.
once it's effective, probably the first effect is gonna be any new construction that it would affect, based on the ordinance for that certificate of occupancy, they would have to have it in place. Any other entities that it would apply to have a year from there to comply.
Give them a year.
Yeah, we probably have to then notify any current ones that fall under it and say, here's the new ordinance, you'll have a year to, yeah.
You know, on our end, we would probably do some marketing. I'd probably ask for the city's help marketing. Hey, here's a new program in place for Hartford. Here's, we'll say, the have-to businesses, anybody else that would like to participate. Here's what you do to make it happen.
I'm just thinking it's be a great way for the Chamber of Commerce to partner with the fire department on getting the word out there about this.
Alright, we got a motion in a second. Do we have any other questions or discussion? Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Kleiser?
Yes.
And Keel.
Yes.
Alright, great. And we can move right into your report. Chief?
All right. Well, touching base on September 27th, or September, we had 27 total call for service, 10 of them in the city limits of Hartford, so it kind of bounces up and down. In months it's 50%, other months, we're 30%. So normally falls average at 40% range. And Travis, yes, I did get it to Teresa on time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And he was pretty proud on Friday.
Yeah, I was down to the limit, but, training wise, EMS in September, we, did a lot of work on, triage and trauma. as we see some bigger scenes. You know, we've seen some in the past where you have multiple patients. Triage essentially is assessing all the patients, deciding which ones need critical help, which ones can wait based on manpower. So we did a lot of training on that. Fire side, we did a lot of training on a rapid intervention team. And a rapid intervention team is anytime we have a structure fire or crew members in a confined space, a life safety atmosphere, we always have a team standing by outside. Essentially, it's our safety team. That if anything happens to an interior crew, Mayday is called. They're the team that's going in to assist getting them out. So we did a lot of training on the rapid intervention team, the tools they have at their for their use, along with their emergency air supply tanks and systems, and then tactics used to get them out. So I was the practice dummy that night. They practiced throwing me out of an elevated window and carrying me down a ladder. So kind of a fun experience. A little sore the next day. But. We also worked on down firefighter gear removal and resuscitation. And we assumed, hey, we're taking a down firefighter out, he's not breathing, no heartbeat. How are you going to get rapid access to the firefighter to provide chest compressions, breathing, and defibrillation? So we did a lot of practice on getting them out of an air tank, out of gear, and rapid treatment. Also participated in Fire Prevention Week here in, I guess that was last week now, last Wednesday. Went into the schools, the younger grades, we had the county smokehouse in. They got put through drills as far as what to do if a smoke alarm is going off, a smoked up atmosphere, how to get out of the room, bedroom, house, and pre-planning to take home with the parents to figure out, you know, in the event there is a fire emergency, how to get out of the house, where is their pre-planned meeting place. Then we went to the middle school, the elementary. The 7th grade class is what we normally target. So we literally built a one-room bedroom on the school property, furnished it with things, got the kids out there, and we lit it on fire. We wanted them to see a basic bedroom, how quickly it can burn up. And it's literally from the time of ignition till the time the whole room is burning is mere minutes. So it really gets the point across to them as far as fire prevention, fire safety. So that's what we've had going since the last time I've talked with you.
You have a crew that, I'm asking more than telling, I guess, but do you have a crew that attends the football game and just kind of on a standby basis?
We do. We split half the games with Humboldt Ambulance. So yes, the school asked us to come down there on EMS standby. So yeah, that was me there a week ago Friday, standing in the rain. But yes, that's one of the services we provided to the school for a lot of years now.
Just specifically football, you're not there for other events, correct?
And it's really based on the superintendent and athletic director and their wishes.
Very good, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, guys.
Great report, thank you. Okay. All right, and the Chamber and Economic Development report, Jesse? Good evening, Council, Mayor. In your packet here is my report. A few things to touch on. The Downtown Hartford Committee is having a community forum on October 22nd that you're invited to attend. That's going to be a listening session and an engagement session to get a feel of what type of events and businesses might be a good fit for downtown Hartford. They'll also be holding the inaugural, which is in Warlock's Wine Walk, on November 1st. We'll be holding a ribbon cutting at the Chamber of Commerce for Edward Jones on November 14th. And then we'll also be holding a ribbon cutting for Dave & Co. on November 5th. It's not in your package, we just scheduled that today. But a lot of good things coming up here in Hartford. I have a few things to chat about really quick. One is the dog park, and the other one is what we're calling a capital campaign. But do you have any questions for me in my report that you're seeing?
What's the date on that dog park? When was that originally recommended? When did David Loke put that together?
Oh. I'll look up the exact date for you.
Last year or sometime, wasn't
And he came here, this would be October 1st, this year.
it? Just this year.
We had a conversation with him last year, a phone call, but he wrote this in an actual email when he came and visited.
October 1st, okay.
Yeah. Hearing that, I'll go into the dog park, recommendation that Stockwell provided here. We went to Torrey Creek Park, we went to a lot of areas in town, and it seemed based on location and infrastructure in place, Torrey Creek Park would be the best place for a dog park, specifically on the east side of, Torrey Creek Park, where there's currently about 2 or 3 disc golf stations. So for us to do that, we'd have to relocate or eliminate those 3 disc golf holes. Specifically, the area would be from kind of where the new parking lot is there, over to there's a rolling sort of hill that comes up there and then down. So it's kind of a triangle area. And we thought that would be a good spot for the dog park. You'd have room there for the small dogs and the old dogs. Before we would go on to that stage, we thought it might be prudent to see if there's an appetite for a dog park. We've heard from people that there is, but we don't know for a fact that they'd actually use it. And so we are recommending to do a temporary dog park or pop-up dog park at Torrey Park, just to the west of the tractor pull area where that large tree is, to get some temporary snow fencing, put it up, and see if people would use it. Advertise it very well, put up some signage and some rules, but just to see how a dog park would go in town, to see if it would be used, and to see if there's any issues that would arise out of that too that we can address before we would make it a permanent dog park, if you would so choose.
How long of a trial do you think would be necessary to really get a feel for that?
Oh, I would say a month minimum.
Kind of
Yeah,
expense.
during the right time of year, obviously.
We're kind of just gonna sit down there and watch how many dogs go in and out.
I'll be happy to do that. You can probably tell the use based on the condition of the grass and.
Do we have any more of the dog stations with the?
I don't think we have any
We
lying
put them
around.
all up, didn't we?
Yes,
I think so.
I think that'd be a good indicator to figure out how many people
Yeah.
are using it.
And-
And put 1,000 rolls of doggy bags out.
Well, you're assuming they're gonna pick up after themselves.
Well, the rest of the, you know.
These are all things that we can monitor then and see how it'll adjust. I think Terry Hagan did mention that the dog way station by the bridge off of Shamrock is the most used dog way station in the entire inventory, so. If that's true, then that would be the ideal spot for a temporary location, because if there's a lot of poop, it means there's a lot of dogs. Or one very active dog, I'm not really sure.
Alright, anything else on dog park?
Just cost, do you have a rough idea what that temporary snow fence and all of that would cost?
Under $100 for the snow fence, I mean, the post will cost a certain amount of dollars.
You'd have to strong arm some city employees in to help you do that, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think they want me doing that.
Is anybody else concerned that a temporary snow fence is not
That'd be low for that.
some dogs in?
Depends what you're gonna.
I guess that's fine.
Stuff or-
I know my dog would get out,
Yeah.
that's my dog,
Sure,
so I guess I just have concerns
yeah.
is that really gonna hold?
How would you gate snow fence, like people coming
I
in
guess
and
I'm
out?
just
I don't know.
I would rather
That's an engineer question that I'd be happy to address.
Yeah.
Hope it will.
I
I think it will.
I think it's another
I
good
mean-
question too.
Yeah, 'cause
Farmers Oil put in a dog park at the Vermillion exit,
Really?
which is pretty nice.
Isn't that what they're doing here now?
Yeah, that's gonna be a big one.
I think I talked to the downtown Sioux Falls, but they did a pop-up dog park earlier in the spring. I'll have to see how they fenced it up.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Yeah. This is probably
Aren't they putting in quite a
Yeah,
dog park
Kirby's
downtown?
donated $40,000 to redo the park south of the depot, or east of the depot building.
But I think there's some, I don't remember the article, but it was, I think it talked about how popular dog parks are becoming, the need for them.
Well, as your household population declines, dogs are making up for the kids, and so more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty true.
I don't know about, moving the disc golf, there's a lot of people that play disc golf.
Yeah.
I'd be really cautious of disrupting the disc golf, cause then we'll have a pile of them down here yelling at us cause we moved their disc golf.
Well, they'll know they're playing disc golf.
Huh?
That's how we'll find out if they're playing disc golf.
Well, they are.
I would recommend, I mean, in an ideal world, we find a different location or buy some land and put up a dog park, but in a world with limited resources and perhaps we can find ways to move around those holes. I just don't know what the course recommendations or what the standards are for disc golf. I think if Craig is here, you get answers to those questions. But my recommendation would be just probably table this, not table it, this isn't a discussion item, but just more of an update. To revisit it in January, have a plan put in place for probably April.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I think we're a little deep in the weeds, but I think it's,
Yeah,
it's a good one to be thinking
yeah.
about.
There's still a lot of questions to be answered.
Good idea. We have been talking about this for quite some time,
Yeah.
so.
Second thing is that the Hartford Area Development Foundation is going to be contracting with a firm called NCDS, the National Community Development Services. They're based out of Atlanta, Georgia. They will be doing a feasibility study on a capital campaign. And so we will be kicking off phase one probably in the next 30 to 45 days. The goal of feasibility study is to determine if there's an appetite in the business community that serves Hartford in conducting a capital campaign for specifically economic and industrial development. And so what they'll do is they'll come in, I'll set up confidential face-to-face meetings with their stakeholders in the area, discussing possible economic development needs, and then they'll determine if there is an appetite for businesses or organizations in the Hartford area to help meet those needs. They'll also do an economic impact analysis to see what the impact might be of, say, an industrial park or any other of our program initiatives. And at the end of the report, it's about an 8 to 10 week process. They'll either give us a go or no go on hosting a capital campaign. And so we will be voting on the contract on our Friday meeting. We approved to go forward and secure a contract at the last meeting. And we believe that this will at least help us determine whether or not this is the path to go. It's been a discussion point since my tenure started here in 2016 whether or not to go this route, and I believe it's been a discussion point a long time before then. In economic development, if you don't have land to develop, it's hard to attract large users. And for us to determine whether or not that's our game, you need to check all the boxes. And so if the report comes back as a no-go, then we'll know that industrial development is not our game, and we need to focus on other economic development initiatives. And that could be part of this report too. So Travis, you've been at our meetings, so if anything you want to add to that? Or?
Yeah, I'll just, my suggestion was to make sure Jesse informed the council about spending this money, because it's a substantial investment. And then so there's my city council pitch. And then my business owner pitch is, if you don't spend money, sometimes to analyze where your strengths and weaknesses are, you waste money and energy and efforts. And that group is, that group would benefit substantially from this investment, I'll put it that way.
I would say on this piece of it too, this study will tell if there's enough interest in funding out there for a public-private partnership for an industrial park. So the only part I'd maybe say that I don't necessarily agree with on what you mentioned is that this will help us find out, is there enough of that public support, or am I saying private support?
Private.
Basically, private support out there to fund and help fund an industrial park like this. And if you're gonna raise serious capital, you need to get a company like this to do it. And you see it happen a lot with different areas and different things that happen out there. They do a full capital campaign. So I don't think it takes us out of the industrial development realm completely. It just says you might not have enough private donations to do a public-private partnership.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, and just to touch on what phase two would look like, it's about a $2 million minimum to make phase two feasible. And so, will help us determine whether or not that is a feasible goal, that's achievable. But I think it's gonna be more money than that.
Yeah, when you say $2 million minimum, the capital campaign itself can't be less than 2 million to make phase two work out, is that?
Feasible, right?
Feasible, yeah.
Yeah, the fees just, they'll justify the.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And this company, just to touch on them, they have experience, they've been doing this since the 80s, and they helped Ford Sioux Falls, its first iteration, and they've managed every campaign since then. They've done several of the Madison ones, they've worked in Brookings, Watertown, Lake Area Tech, GUED.
Currently work in Metro, they work in Yankton.
Yep. So they've experience in South Dakota, which is comforting. Any questions?
I have one.
Come on up, Sadie.
Do they include the community impact? Do the residents, do the rest of the business community, whether it's the small business, businesses, or the residents, the people themselves, do they do any kind of an impact study and how that relates to them and how the community feels about it? I only say that because in whether it was the mural project or other projects, it always comes up that Hartford, even the new people, or especially the new people, want to keep a small town feel. They want to keep a community feel. So I would just ask if they do any kind of a broader community impact, their opinions, their feelings about, that broad of an industrial development and the impact it would have.
Well, I don't think we've determined the final goal yet, so it's hard to answer that question, because we'll find out is what exactly is missing, what is needed. And so what they do is they do 60 to 70, or maybe it's 40 to 60 confidential interviews of stakeholders in the area. We provide that list of stakeholders to them, and they interview those stakeholders. And so they take information from those stakeholder meetings, they put it in the final report to
And
the
the
Development Foundation.
stakeholder is people with the money to invest, or is
No,
one of
it's-
those stakeholders considered the community?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah, a stakeholder would be a person with an interest or a concern in something. So businesses, organizations, people. Last thing, on the transfer of the lot south of the South Bar, I've worked with DENR to have a phase one environmental assessment done on that. They provide that free of charge to cities and nonprofit economic development organizations. And so if the phase one comes back and it's determined that a phase two is necessary, they'll also cover that cost as well. And so it's a good lesson to learn that going forward, if we have one that we need a phase one or a phase two done, they will help cover those costs with the brownfields program.
Good. That's good.
Can I say something about that?
This is your last one, Sandy.
For your information, that lot is where the original depot's at.
Possibly, we don't know that for sure.
No, it is.
We don't have proof.
It is. Jesse doesn't want you to know that.
I would love that to be true, I just don't know if it's true or not. We don't know if that's true.
Well, it's somewhere between that lot and the street, but that's what that is the railroad. Just a note of history, for it would be wonderful whether
Asterisk.
whether it's a distillery
Possibly.
or a community center,
Possibly.
or a museum, community center, senior, whatever, that it could be built to look like that depot.
That might
It
have
would
been.
add to the downtown immensely and give back to the history.
It would add some character, All right.
Allegedly.
Anything else, Jesse?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're gonna move over to city engineer report.
Okay,
Ross, you got a couple updates and then you got some pay requests in there.
yes. So Vandemark, roadway improvements project, there's still quite a bit of cleanup work to do. That includes backfilling sidewalks, backfilling curb, topsoil work. I believe they just gravelled 9th Street, to the east of Vandemark, but that gravel's still pretty rough, and it's gonna need some fine tuning, before it's, fully complete.
So who's in charge of taking down the barriers on that?
The actual, like,
The road closed.
the road closed barricades,
Yeah, the barricades.
that will be the contractor's responsibility to do that.
So they're down, so it was the contractor's
I'm
responsibility?
gonna say they're down, aren't they?
They're down, but they're parking equipment, so you can't get, well, it's almost out of there now, but the barriers are down on the east end. But on the west end, they had a road grader, skid loader, maybe another loader.
Packer.
So if you went down that road at night, then you got stuck.
Oh, like you couldn't get through it all?
Maybe on a motorcycle.
Okay.
Take a little bit of the ditch.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
The oversight seems to have fallen off dramatically, is my observation of that project.
Okay.
I did call Mitch this morning about that there's all this, cause there was all this equipment down there, but there were no barricades, so like you
Right.
said, people start going down it, and then they run into all this equipment on there, so I
Okay.
did mention that to Mitch this morning.
Okay.
Most of the vehicles come over from the west side too.
I guess I will make note of that, and I'll talk to, I'm not even sure who was out doing inspection on this job currently. I haven't been in the office much lately, but we'll make sure we address the signage and barricades, and if we need to have them put back up, if they're gonna be parking equipment there, maybe that's what we need to do for a little while.
Pretty
Otherwise,
recent picture too you got here. Stop signs are up and equipment parked there. Zoom in.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm done.
Yeah, the picture in the report speaks exactly to what Mark's talking about.
okay,
And I thought those stop signs were going away.
Yeah, and I talked to Mitch about that this morning too, I said, we got temporary four-way stops, and we're only supposed to have stops going east and west on 9th and Part T, so I told Mitch that this morning too, so he was gonna tell the contractor that as well.
Teresa, what's the city ordinance for, if I've got a deflection, a crack, something not aligned in my sidewalk, what's the city ordinance? What's the maximum that can be?
Or according to our sidewalk policy, an inch, either
What if I've got a
horizontal,
6 or
vertical.
8 inch cut next to my sidewalk that somebody could fall off of and break an ankle or a knee or a femur?
But it is the homeowner's responsibility, liability.
Has the project been turned over?
No, like I said,
So-
it's gonna be the project.
And it's in the right of way? I see a serious liability there for the city, for the contractor, for the engineer, for the homeowner, for all parties involved. There's nothing stopping anybody from using those sidewalks, and it's not adequately backfilled. It's just, it's the rented mule of street projects.
I guess, in my experience in construction projects, usually that boulevard area right around the sidewalk is usually the last area to get backfilled. It just always is the case. There should still be some signage out there saying sidewalk closed, so if there's not, we'll make sure we address that. And in the meantime, we'll be pushing the contractor to get out there and backfill those areas. And I know it has been wet in the last couple of weeks, so it's been difficult to do some of that topsoil work. You just can't, place topsoil, without making a mess a lot of times if it's wet at all.
You can always install sandbags and signs on many days.
Yes, you can. Anything else with the Vandemark project?
No.
Okay. I guess with that, we have a pay request number 6 to Sukup Construction for $179,923.35. for that project.
Alright, with that, I think the sentence kind of says, you know, hey, wait. How many payments are left on that project? Is this final?
This is not final.
No one is final yet?
There will be at least, for sure, one more. I would say there's probably more likely to be a couple more.
800, 900 of them.
Is that 900 include this 179? No.
Okay.
So if we pay that, we're almost at,
Motion to table the pay request till first meeting in November.
second.
A motion second, no discussion on
So,
the table.
which one?
No, we have no discussion on the table until the first meeting in November. That was.
I didn't know if you said the first or the second.
Yep, totally. I thought you were asking.
First meeting.
Second.
First meeting.
Alright, we'll vote. Brennan,
Yep.
Jones,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yeah.
Keel,
Yes.
and Lanzer.
Yes.
Okay. Alright. Any other projects to discuss or go to pay request number 17?
I'll just briefly touch on the Mickelson project. I know that we've created a punch list item of work to be complete or pavement repairs that need to be made. I will check to make sure that any of those items, discussed by the property owners that were at tonight's meeting, that we make sure we specifically look at those areas and do a double check to make sure there are no cracks or anything that was missed on our punch list. But contractors should be working on those items in the next few weeks. We did have some fence and streetlights recently installed. And on our side, I guess we'll be working on record drawings. And then we still have the Lomar process to finish up the work for the permit we had to do, the rerouting of the stream and installation of those box culverts.
Ross, when they did that sidewalk, did they go all the way from my corner all the way at one time, or did they do that in 2 phases or 3 phases?
All the way down Mickelson?
Yes,
No, it was broken up into several phases.
because when these guys were talking tonight about poor backfill, man, I'll tell you, I don't know what's different. I need to walk down there and see, because mine, I'm telling you, on my end, the grass is absolutely perfect. I can't figure out when they were talking about that tonight, I
And the
can't.
guy who does that work out there, they're not lying when they say it. There's some really shoddy work down to
Really?
the east. Yes.
Then it is on our.
They did a really nice job at the councilman's house.
Please don't say that. Erase that.
Certain councilman's houses, yes.
Yeah, but when they were saying that tonight, because I think even Chris's, I don't think his is bad. I think our block is pretty good. That's why I was wondering if they did that in 2 or 3 phases.
Yeah, I think they did it, one block or maybe even a
Okay.
full block at a time.
Okay.
But,
Who gets to see the punch list?
generally, that's just between the contractor, and I think we generally would copy like Teresa
I haven't seen any yet.
Given these projects, and you got some genuinely vested individuals who are writing some pretty big checks even, I'd like the city council to be included in that.
Okay, can copy you on those.
Because when the neighbors call,
And that's kind of a constantly changing, moving list. I mean, we usually develop one before the project's even complete, and we kind of have that to give the contractors a rough guide of some things that we know of at the time. And then we'll do an inspection upon substantial completion and make a formal list. But just because we have that list doesn't mean we can't add or change things on that list too.
How long
It'd
do
be
you
a live
usually give
document
them?
up there on Google Docs or something like that, doesn't have to be static, you know?
How long do they usually have to complete the punch list? Cause I know it took forever with the bike trail.
That's the last one I can think of where we actively knew
Wow. I mean,
what the
it seemed like a
status-
year
yeah,
before they
yeah,
got it.
what the punch list was.
I mean, is there a certain?
I don't think there's any specific deadline based on when they receive a punch list necessarily. The only thing it's tied to is, you know, just substantial completion and final completion dates. And from substantial completion, I believe it's 14 days, they have to get to final completion, which would mean all the punch list items are complete. And there is, you know, liquidated damages you can assess if they don't meet that 14 days.
Oh, I don't know
Denmark's
who the-
buying some time by being substantially complete.
What was that?
So Denmark's buying some time by being substantially complete, but not finally, but not complete.
Yeah, I guess I don't know the date of substantial completion, but if it's been over 14 days that we've considered that project substantially complete, we could be, you know, looking at that for damages.
Right, so I'm just gonna go on the record saying, moving forward, what I'd like to see is with pay applications, there's a punch list attached at that time. Then I would probably start making motions that will release a check upon completion of the punch list.
So, just so
I'm just saying.
following, just on like the last, like once we reach substantial completion, we would attach the punch list.
Do you have a punch list for Fanny Mark right now?
With me, no.
No, do you? Is there one that exists?
I'm assuming there is, but I couldn't.
So let's imagine there is. Okay. What I'm saying is if that document existed and I could see it, tonight for payment, I would have said, I'll approve the payment upon completion of the punch list that existed at that time. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's like your most recent version.
Yeah.
Well, just so you know, down on Mickelson too, I don't know who built the last house down there, but there was dirt waiting there. So they couldn't actually finish the sidewalk, and then they did finish the sidewalk, and they drove a payloader across it and brought all the dirt in. And if you go down there now, you can still see a spot that they tore out again. So, I mean, it's not the project's guy's fault, it's the guy that built the house and was doing the dirt work. I don't know who it is. But just so you know, if you happen to go down there and you see a chunk of brand new looking concrete, that's why. Because they had dirt back there and the contractor, we asked them to wait, but I mean, how long can you wait for a guy to move dirt? I mean, you can't hold up the project, so we told him he had a weekend to move his dirt, which he had 3 months before to move his dirt, and I don't know if he did, but I know we had payloaders. I've seen him personally driving across it. And there ain't no 4-inch sidewalks, it's gonna take a payloader full, empty, or anything without cracking it, so.
Yeah, and I would totally support the contractor in that case, when they said.
Right, and
Wait a minute, this has been repaired, this damage isn't due to, you know, prep site, the sub-base not being packed and prepped properly. So, that punch list can protect them as well.
Right.
Alright, I think we're gonna keep moving here. Do we
Can
have any
I ask
motions?
one quick question
Yes.
of Ross?
Yeah.
Ross, when, this is what I think, I don't know if this is reality or not, this is what I think. I think when they put a street in, whether it's an existing neighborhood that got a new street, or like Nicholson, but it always seems like the new flat work never reaches the quality of the existing flat work, whether it's a driveway apron or whether it's a sidewalk. And I suspect that's because it's a bid. You know, there's no doubt in my mind that if I just hire a contractor and I'm gonna write that check and he's gonna do my sidewalk, that he's gonna make it look as nice as he can, because I'm writing the check. But on a contractor that's pouring blocks and blocks and blocks of sidewalk and he bid it as cheap as he could, that sidewalk's not going to look like my sidewalk does.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what, I forget Chris's last name, but I suspect that's what he was getting at, is the quality of the sidewalk. The boot print, you know, whether it was broomed, troweled, power troweled, whatever they do. I don't do concrete, but I know what nice looking concrete looks like, and I know what concrete looks like that I do. But I suspect if there's a standard, well, I know the argument because I know where Chris lives, and that's a big house, and I'm sure he pays a lot of taxes. And when he goes outside and looks at that sidewalk, he's gonna think, that sidewalk doesn't match my irrigated boulevard or my house. So the question is, and I don't mean to drag this out, but the question is, I assume that if we are looking for a standard for flat work, that somebody's gonna pay for that standard. Because you're not gonna get two guys with a 2x4 screeding for the same money you're gonna get with the guy that's out there, you know, making the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
So I assume you can spec that in the bid. When you put a project out for bid, you say, we want all the flat work on this project to look like it's going in front of a $500,000 house. But you're gonna pay for that, somebody's gonna pay for that, either on the front end or the back end, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we typically fall back on like the DOT standard for concrete flat work, which
Which
you know,
must not be very high.
well, it just describes, you know, what materials you need to use and
Yeah.
what type of finish it has to have, and you know the cure that's put on it. That
But
sort
it
of
really
thing.
doesn't go into appearance.
No, not much about the actual appearance of the finished product. You know, I've never seen it done, but I know with like a retaining wall, you can specify an architectural surface finish, and it'll.
I just don't know how moving forward, because people's impressions, I wasn't satisfied when they poured my apron in whenever. And I was just told, you know, that's the way they pour concrete now. That's just the way they do it, because they're doing mass concrete. And my concrete doesn't match, my apron doesn't match my driveway. And my sidewalk looks nicer than my apron, but that's because I paid somebody to do it. And I suspect people's standards aren't gonna lessen, their standards are gonna get higher as we're looking at new neighborhoods, new streets, new roads, and I don't know how we address that. But I severely doubt that the quality is gonna get better, but I think the expectations are gonna continue to rise. And I don't know how we address that in the future. So,
Yeah, I think the takeaway would be is if there's another spec we can look at out there besides the DOT spec, if there's anything else we can.
You can spec different finishes on a sheetrock ceiling or wall. What you're asking for is something similar for a sidewalk.
well, flat work in general. But when these projects are bid, I mean, everybody's gotta be on the same page, because when you bid these projects, you have to tell the contractors, we want nice flat work. You need to bid that, because we don't want you to bid the nice flat work and then we get the two guys with the 2x4 flat work. Because that's what I do.
Yeah, and it's gonna be tough to enforce any, you know, real aesthetic standard on sidewalk, for instance, just because it's all based on a personal judgment. I mean, unless, like the standard for, you know, what the drop is on sidewalk, or, you know, ADA standards, you know, based on slopes, those are really easy to enforce because it's cut and dry.
Yeah.
This is what you're looking for, and this is what you're not.
But appearance is subjective.
Appearance is gonna always be subjective,
Yeah.
and on a mass-produced,
Well, there's an
product.
opportunity for you then to establish those different appearances, class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, class 2 guys in a 2x4.
I was just curious about that.
Alright. I don't think
We will in a second, Fred.
let's do it.
I make a motion to approve, pay request number 14 for construction for Mickelson Road. I think it's 14.
I have 17.
So,
Application number 14.
No, I have it on the agenda wrong. It's 14 in the packet, sorry, that's
I'm
my,
looking right here at the,
my boo-boo.
I'm with you, Jones.
There you go. Alright, we got a motion,
somebody believes it.
Second.
now we got a second. More discussion. Alright, we'll vote. Brennan?
Yeah.
Keel?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Lanzer?
Yeah.
And Wagner.
Yeah.
Alright. Any other questions for us? Alright, we'll move over to Neil. Taking on Craig's report, anything we have that you wanna talk about, or any questions? from
No,
us?
the only thing I have to add is we have started on the concrete on the 10-foot stuff out there, so we're having a contractor gonna lay it in for us, so we're tearing it out and gonna pin it and all that kind of stuff, but we're actually gonna have a contractor put it in for us, so.
Okay.
What's the finish gonna be on that?
Should be as good as, what's out there, so. We normally with Scotty's crew, we normally don't have too much issues with them, so,
Scotty's still in town?
no.
So it's not Scotty's crew.
Well, it's not Scotty on his crew. If you know Scotty doesn't do anything besides dump concrete and run anyway, so he never does the finish.
Do we, as a city, need to pull our own flat work permits? Like the work that was done in the park, or this work, since it's actually a sub doing the work, or how does that work?
We probably should, we do our own building permits.
Do our own buildings, sure.
They did tell me about the flat work permit, so, yeah, so I do know.
There we go.
I suspect we can blame Craig for that, because he's not here.
Exactly.
Exactly,
Yep.
perfect, perfect.
I'll even second that.
Well, when you have a contractor doing it, they should do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well,
I
we're
tell you what,
paying the
sidewalk
contractor to do it,
discussions
he should pull it.
real meeting.
It's been a tough night to be in the sidewalk business.
Get on that
Yes.
gavel, Mayor, get on the gavel.
Sidewalk. Alright, sounds good. We'll move on to finance officer report. Any questions for Karen, or anything to add, Karen?
Oh, nothing to add, just want you all to look over your attendance chart to make sure it's right. By the end of the month, I'll be processing payroll, so if there's anything I missed or omitted, let me know.
So, can I ask a quick question, Karen?
Sure.
I see we're negative on we're down on our taxes by almost $1 million. Any thoughts on that?
I think a lot of it is the timing of the
Or no,
payments.
total cash, never mind. Sorry, I looked at
Let's
the wrong.
say our
category.
sales tax
Never
is
mind.
actually up.
Never mind, shush.
From month to
Scratch
month,
that.
sales tax fluctuates, I
Scratch
think that's just a
that.
timing
Just-
thing.
Did you say shush?
Shush myself, I'm
Oh, you're
shushing
talking
myself.
yourself?
I'm talking to myself, sorry. Never mind. Let's talk about sidewalks.
Alright. There we go. Alright, anything else for Karen? When do you need to know on the attendance chart? As soon as possible?
I'll process payroll on November 1st, so
Okay,
prior to that, yeah.
okay, sounds good. Thank you, Karen.
I have some sidewalks to there for you later, Artie.
Okay.
Alright, now we'll move on to Teresa's report.
I don't have too much to add. I should have mentioned this during the maintenance report, but I did send you guys an email too, but in case you didn't catch it, I did put in the box the street sweeping schedule. Jesse's been keeping track of when he does, so I put that out there for you guys to look at, and we'll update it every month for you when he goes out and does any street sweeping, so I'll constantly, every month, be putting a new one out there for you, so you can kind of keep tabs on that.
We're at the box, I was looking around for that.
Should be under council information.
Yeah, you gotta go all the way out. I found it, Travis.
Okay.
I say, hopefully it's there.
Yeah, I found
in
it.
there, so, okay. And then I just wanted to touch base, I did talk with Greg Boggs with the Hartford Township, we had discussed at our last meeting, they had asked to get a service line to them when we run sewer up Western. They have agreed to annex in. He signed a petition, he went and talked to the board, signed a petition. And so, we gotta have a public hearing on that, so that whole process is starting. So, it'll go to planning and zoning first, and then it'll come to city council. So probably your second meeting, we'll look at, doing a resolution to annex that in to the city and moving on from there. And then, the only thing I think I wanna touch on is reminder, the joint jurisdiction meeting is the last Tuesday, the 29th of this month. I would like many of you to come as possible. I will advertise the meeting, but it's Legion, 7 o'clock on the 29th. And, letters went out to all the property owners within that proposed area. We've had one, have we had more than one people come in and ask for some
I
information?
just have the one.
Okay. But we have up on our website a map of the proposed area, just a sample of Dell's joint jurisdiction for them to kind of reference, since we plan to hopefully kind of mimic that in some shape or form. And then I just have out there too what the procedure is for joint jurisdiction, so that's clarified a little bit for them. So we had, otherwise I invited planning and zoning staff with the county, the planning commissioners and the county commissioners, but I haven't heard anything back from any of them yet, so. And hopefully we'll have a decent turnout. And we'll kind of have those discussions with the property owners and clarify, anything that they may be confused about, or answer any questions, or see what their questions are, and kind of work with them there, so.
Nothing else?
Nope, unless you guys have any questions?
No other questions, we'll move on. Alright, we've got whole business discussion of allocation of funds to the downtown. The Leo Schreier Foundation. I said that wrong, I didn't, but. Alright, we've got that on the agenda. Anybody wanna take the lead on this discussion?
I'll take the lead. We talked about it at the last meeting. I guess in short, there was money donated in Leo and Violet's name, correct, Danny, is that name? To the city. Apparently the intention was, well, nobody's really sure what the intention was. It's been said that the intention was to honor, or to do something with giving them recognition for the donation. It went into the general fund. I don't wanna go over all the bad stuff, but really, it's just a matter of finally getting around to honoring the donation in some fashion for that. So, at the last meeting, we discussed transferring funds to the downtown committee. And letting them take the lead on how to recognize Leo and Violet for their donation to the city, however many years ago that was. So with that in mind, what was the figure, Teresa, 10,003?
79.51.
10,379.51.
Yep.
I'm gonna make a motion to transfer from the general fund $10,379.51 to the downtown committee, so they can honor Leo and Violet in the manner that they see fit.
Second. We need to be specific, like downtown Hartford Inc. In that motion? Is that your intent?
That's what Karen heard.
That's what Karen's got.
She speaks Monahan.
She does.
Holy
She's
smokes.
been making me look a lot smarter than I really have been doing this for a long time.
Alright, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Alright, we'll vote. Keel?
Yes.
Lancer?
Yes.
Brenneman?
Yep.
Jones?
Yes.
And Monahan.
You know. She speaks Nelson, so speaking Monahan's easy.
Alright, new business. We got West Central softball request for scoreboards.
No sidewalk talk.
Yes.
I learned so much tonight. Yeah, I was talking about sports complex sidewalks. How about that? Let's bring that up.
You bring up Swanson Park, I'm leaving.
All right.
I'm Eric Coonsweiler, and Brad Kramer here. We're representing the Hartford Softball Association. When Nate was still with us, we were working on a project with him, a scoreboard project down at the field A here in town next to the city pool. We had that project about 70, I think it was about 75% funded, so we were here to ask you for the remaining amount. I think it was just under $3,000 at this time. You know, we have a lot of talk about Swenson Park, but it's important down here at these fields because we have lights, especially this time of season with fall ball. Brad, I think he said we had 30 plus games here in Hartford at Field A this summer and into the fall. We secured 2 grants. Brad secured 2 grants. One with Legends for Youth, and that has a time frame tied to it. The money, or the project has to be completed by April, same project we had out at Swenson, in order to draw down those funds.
Yeah, so the grants were the Sanford Legends grant, we secured $2,500, and then ASA or USA Softball Hartford, or South Dakota, we secured a grant for $1,500. Hartford Area Softball, our association, is willing to put in $3,200, so that's, you know, the project is $10,200 is what the bids were, so we're asking the city to contribute the remaining $3,000. So it's gonna be a partnership between really 4 groups to add the scoreboard to the city fields.
You're looking for our contribution of 3,000.
Yes, and the bids are in there, everything is done locally, got local vendors, so that's what the price is gonna be right there.
Not to exceed 3,000. I don't know if it's gonna be quite that much. It's gonna be close.
Yeah.
Sure. Nice work getting all those grants put together and everything like that, just to whittle that project down the way you did. Thank you.
So any questions for us on that, or financials? It's pretty basic.
We're looking at using the bigger field to
The bigger field, yeah. Yeah, and we're planning, when the poles are done and the electrical and stuff, we're hoping to have it wired so that in the future we can put a scoreboard on the backside, so we can do another field as well. We're just trying to get this one, because this is where the older kids mainly play, this is where the high school age plays. If there's night games, it's on that field.
I think something else important to note is on the scoreboard, we have I think we included it on the bid, with the sponsorship sign on there, so there's a possibility to get a sponsorship to recoup that 3,000 as well.
Sure.
Would you be wanting the city staff to erect it like they did the one in the sports complex? I mean, I just wanna know.
Yeah,
what you're doing.
we kind of took the bids from that project as well, and yeah, we're hoping to work with the city on that.
Okay.
Yeah. And that, you know, there's a little blurriness there because Nate was kind of working on that for us, so
Yeah.
you'd be working directly with us now.
Sure. All right, do we have any motions?
Would we fund this just out of the general fund?
This would be.
That's where I would take it, yeah.
I'd make
Take
a
out
motion
the-
to approve $3,000 for the Hartford Area Softball Association for their scoreboard project to come from the general fund.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yeah, you guys realize that when this thing, if it goes up on city property, it becomes city property?
Yes.
Okay. And who would be, who are you guys looking at running it?
So what we would look at is if there's local teams playing, our local coaches would be in charge of it. Otherwise, we provide the umpires for all the games. So if it's 2 out-of-town teams, then our umpires would be in charge of it.
Okay.
The equipment would be locked up in the city shed.
It's
Handheld
like the one out
devices.
there.
Yeah.
So it's remote from their phone, they can run it.
Well, I think we're going with the hand device.
Handheld on this one?
Yeah,
Same price.
Yeah.
just different option.
Okay.
And I assume, you guys think, or assume the city will be liable for the maintenance of it?
I don't know what maintenance there would be, but yeah.
Well, I mean,
There's-
sooner or later it's gonna something.
Right, yeah.
There's a substantial warranty on it, 5 or 10 years.
5 years, I can't.
So who are you guys looking at putting it in?
So it almost mirrored the same project that we had up at Swenson, and I think you said the city staff basically set the I-beams, and then I think our electrician will take over from there.
Just as, cause the city, I mean, there's liability with, I assume, whoever puts it in, whether there is or is not liability.
Oh, let's see, how did Craig handle that?
I can't remember how it worked at the Swenson's part.
You had Sioux Valley punch the holes,
Yes.
Yes.
and this one,
And then we had Beaver weld the steel together and put that up, and then he actually come out and helped us set it in the holes for both of them with his extended hole.
Yeah.
And we filled it with concrete, plumbed it and all that, and put the scoreboards up, and then your crew come out and did all the wiring, so.
So, Beaver built in the city pretty much put it in.
They're the ones that, he's the one that welded the steel together, so it was straight and square and
Maybe helps
everything.
you guys hang in.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a charge to have it come out.
yeah, so from a liability standpoint, Sioux Valley takes liability when they punch the holes, Beaverbilt takes liability when he's using his equipment.
Yeah.
The electrician took the liability when they're doing their work.
I was just making sure we didn't have much volunteers out there with high lift jacks and whatnot.
What kind of finish is gonna be on that concrete?
Wow.
You worry about backfill, other people worry about finish. I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around people knowingly putting sprinklers in, right of ways.
Right away.
In misters.
Alright, we're gonna vote. Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Brenneman?
Yeah,
Lanzer?
Yes.
And Keel.
Abstain.
Alright. Good deal.
thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, guys.
There's actually an ordinance about
Alright, last item up, we've got a tax payment request on parcel 86249.
Make a motion to approve the tax abatement.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none? We'll vote. Lanzer?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes.
Brenneman?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Yeah. Just for, cause I heard Tony make a noise, it's a tax abatement for a 100% disabled vet. So, I don't know if anybody's seen that in the packet that was online.
Yeah, it's for a percentage, I mean, it's for less than.
Yeah, it's only for the $616, so
Yeah.
it's only percentage.
Alright, I don't believe we have any correspondence, and I don't believe we've discussed any items to go into executive session for. There's a motion to adjourn.
So move.